Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Shadows of the Damned, part Resident Evil 4, part Suda51 Madness, and all dick jokes. Shadows of the Damned was a commercial failure at launch, but with a re-release coming soon, is this game worth checking out? Let's find out. Shadows of the Damned is a third-person shooter with a hell of a pedigree. Suda51 of No More Heroes is producer, Shinji Mikami of RE4 and Evil Within is creative lead, and Akira Yamaoka of Silent Hill fame wrote the music. And all of this talent is in service of a game that's just a delivery mechanism for dick jokes. You play as Garcia Hotspur, badass Hispanic demon hunter with a sick back tat and an even cooler purple coat. When his girlfriend Paula is joined by an archdemon Fleming, Garcia and his Johnson journey into hell itself to battle demons on a quest to get her back. And yes, Garcia's Johnson is actually a character, Johnson being an ex-demon flying skull who also serves as Garcia's arsenal. Johnson can turn into your typical core kit of weapons: a melee torch, a handgun boner, a shotgun, and an SMG. As the game progresses, you kill bosses, these weapons will naturally increase in length and girth, that is to say, they'll be upgraded into more powerful and ridiculous variants. There's no beating around the bush here. Shadows of the Damned is an excuse for Suda51 to get all the dick jokes he didn't make in No More Heroes out into the open. There's so many I'd call it a motif, from stuff like having to suggestively thrust Johnson into multiple objects before they burst open, to all the characters making many suggestive jokes about lacking penetration or being overly endowed. While this might sound crass, and it certainly can be, it honestly is usually so ridiculous and done with literal fourth wall breaking winks, you can't help but go along with it. But enough jerking around, let's talk gameplay. Shadows of the Damned is a fairly standard third-person shooter, with a core mechanic being around something called a light shot. The demon world will often protect its enemies or cover the whole world in darkness, which hurts Garcia, so to mitigate this, you'll need to find various goat heads or lanterns to shoot with your recharging light shot. This recurring puzzle motif pops up a lot over the game's linear experience. The game does mix up gameplay more than a few parts, from several 2D shmup sections to a shooting gallery with a gun called the Big Boner, and it also has a light upgrade system based on red gems you find throughout the world. And honestly, not much more to say about Shadows of the Damned, as it's a pretty bog-standard Shinji Mikami third-person shooter game, accented by its absurd story visuals and reveling in immaturity. So what do I like about Shadows of the Damned? This game is so unapologetically immature that I cannot help but love it. It's very crass and very stupid, but it's done with so much earnest and so little guile that you can't help yourself and just kind of get caught up in the ridiculousness of it all. Additionally, the shooting is actually pretty decent, and while it lacks the precision punch of, say, RE4, limb targeting allows for some deeper strategy, and the bosses are almost all fantastic. And speaking of fantastic, the enemy and world designs here are great, particularly those aforementioned bosses, with an absolutely absurd amount of creativity, accented by the usual Suda51 weirdness. When it comes to the bad, this game's color palette, while stylistic in its dark oversaturation, ends up looking kind of muddy across the board in ways that don't complement its otherwise excellently designed environments and enemies. Additionally, the game really needed more enemy types, as you basically fight the same 3 or 4, which are just variants of each other for the majority of the game. And lastly, there's a ton of performance issues on its release consoles, although this is mitigated if you play it backwards compat on a Series X, and that's all paired with more than a few janky bugs and unpolished parts. It definitely has that AA feel. As you know, rate games here on a 3-point scale, must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. Shadows of the Damned is trashy, janky, grotesque, and stupid, and I absolutely love it. It's unapologetically crass, but never mean-spirited, and it pairs its goofball immaturity with generally solid third-person shooting and a whole lot of charm. It's a shame this game didn't land when it first came out, as it's just the kind of weird experience gamers bored of modern third-person shooters should try. Garcia Hotspur is ready to kick some demon dick, and you absolutely should be along for the ride. Now bring on that remake. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you played Shadows of the Damned, did you play it before? Are you going to check it out now? It's an Xbox back compat game, but you can't buy it digitally, so you'd have to go buy a physical version, but I do think it's worth it. Regardless, let me know your opinions in the comments, and then go out there and find a way to play Shadows of the Damned.